What's up, everybody? Welcome back into another episode of Tide Talk Live. Stacy Blackwood, joined as always by my good buddy Jake Thomas. Jake, how you doing tonight, man?
Man, I'm doing great, Stacy. Glad to be back again with you. It's been a couple weeks, but we're back, and I'm ready and excited about what we're about to talk about because season's getting closer, brother. Every single day.
Yeah, we're 60 days away from kickoff, so which means we're at the time of this recording on what is it, Tuesday night, July
Mm-hmm.
1st.
Yeah,
So we're approximately 30 days or so until Alabama will begin fall camp. So football season is right around the corner. So there's no better time to dive into what we're going to be diving into today, which is the depth chart. We've been promising this all
yeah,
summer long, and we're finally going to get to it. We're going to start on the defensive side of the ball. But
yep.
before we dive into that too far, please do like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. We're also free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcast. Just search Tide Talk Live, and you can find us there. We are powered by the Believe Network, so we are thankful for that partnership as well. Jake, we're going to start with the defensive front because that's where you win some football games is in the
Yeah.
trenches. And when we're going to start with the defensive front, we're going to include the bandit and the wolf positions with the defensive front. I really think this is a unit that really needs to play well this year, Jake. And I guess before we start with the depth chart on it, just quickly your expectations overall for the defensive front here in 2025.
Yeah, I have high expectations for this defensive front because LT Overton's returning. We know what he's capable of. He was in the backfield. We talked about back in the backfield a lot last year and could not finish tackles. So if he fixes that this year, that kid's going to have probably 6, 7 sacks on the year for sure, maybe more. And then you look at experienced guys like Tim Keenan. Tim Keenan's been there a while. He's a great he's like a defensive tackle, nose tackle type guy. He's really good at what he does. And then Q Russo was probably playing his best football before he got injured last year. So, and him coming back, man, I'm excited. This defensive front has a chance to be special.
Absolutely, and I do think it all starts with LT Overton and Tim Keenan, the two guys that you mentioned, and of course, Jake, at that bandit position, I guess we'll kind of start there. Obviously, LT Overton's going to get the nod; he's going to get the majority of the reps. I
Mm-hmm.
think after that, they bring in a guy like Kelby Collins, a transfer from Florida, who is actually originally from Gardendale, Alabama,
Yeah.
but a guy who is similarly built to LT Overton. But I do think you're going to see him slide to the inside maybe about half the time that he's playing and for, pass rushing situations. So I think from a bandit standpoint, we could probably see more of a Jordan Renaud, a Keon Keeley take up some of those backup bandit roles as well, Jake. And just overall, I think you have to feel pretty good about the bandit room. When you have LT Overton leading it, you have a guy like Kelby Collins, who's a proven SEC commodity that you can count on. And then up and comers like Jordan Renaud and Keon Keeley, who everything I have heard, Keeley is starting to turn the corner.
Yeah.
He moved to a new position last year, put on that extra weight, and he is starting to blossom there. So I think you're looking at a bandit position that really has a lot of talent and a lot of depth. So I'm really excited about that spot.
Yeah, me too, Stacy. And Julian Renaud, he played a little bit last year in his time, and he was very, very successful as well. So man, that bandit spot is deep. It after you get past LT Overton, and perhaps if Collins does, Kobe Collins does play a little bit there, it's kind of not as experienced, but you still have guys who could be legit there, and Jordan Renaud and Keon Keeley for sure.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the pressures that LT Overton was able to. I think he had 39 pressures last year, but only converted those into about 2 sacks. So
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at a guy, if he only finishes 25% of the time on those, he's got around double digit sacks. So
It's
I don't
incredible.
see any scenario this year where he is not hovering right around double digit sacks. So I'm
Mhm.
expecting a big year from LT Overton and the overall bandit position group as well for the Crimson Tide.
Yep.
Then you kick it in, Jake, to defensive tackle, and you started to see the emergence. I say D tackle; it's kind of a DN defensive tackle, however you want to call it in this Kane Womack defense. But James Smith, I think,
Mhm.
leads the charge there. You got a
Yep.
Edric Hill there. I think you could see Kelby Collins kind of play there. So I like what they have there. I'm a little concerned about the depth at that position behind James Smith and Edric Hill. Like I said, you could see some Kelby Collins, but after that, it's really like Isaiah Fonga, and you don't really have a ton of depth there at defensive end / defensive tackle in this defensive front. So, what are your thoughts there behind James Smith there at defensive tackle?
Yeah, you're right, Stacey. It's a little thin there after Smith and Hill, but if Smith stays healthy, I'm for sure he's going to be a great asset there. He showed signs last year. I don't think he started until middle of the season last year. He finally earned a role, and he is just took it up and been great there since. Haven't really seen much of Hill, but from what I've been told and what I've seen, he's going to be really, really good as well in his playing time. So those two guys I'm good with. Have no issues there. It's just the back end from after those two guys I'm worried about.
Yeah, and I'll start with this because this is something I want to talk about just for a second. Steve Mbumwa, I think, is a guy who could emerge this fall as maybe that third option at defensive tackle uh, behind James Smith and Edric Hill. Obviously, a guy who's originally from Canada, was going to be a part of last year's recruiting class, but had to go to JUCO. Was there 1 year, played really well there in Mississippi, enrolls in the spring. Doesn't really make a ton of noise, but he's still learning the position, still learning football really in general, but
Right.
has the size, has the tools, has the explosiveness to be a really disruptive interior defensive lineman. So I'm hoping once fall camp gets here, he starts to make a little noise. And if he does that, then you have about 3 or 4 guys that you can rely on there at that defensive tackle spot. So it's not the end of the world, but you do need to
Right.
kind of stay healthy there with James Smith and Edric Hill.
Yeah, I agree. And you brought up the explosiveness, Stacey. You kind of see how Kalen DeBoer and Kane Womack wants their defense. They want the defense to be explosive, and you can see that with this defensive front that they have built up and have inherited since they've been there at Alabama.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we kick it further inside, Jake, to nose tackle and
Mm-hmm.
Tim Keenan, maybe one of the most underrated players nationally,
Yep.
a guy who's waited his turn, worked on his body all throughout his Alabama career. And you saw that pay off last year with a really good redshirt junior season. Now he's back as a redshirt senior, a leader of this Alabama defense, a leader on and off the field, actually, and just a really good football player. As far as being a plug the middle nose tackle, true nose tackle, he's about as good as it gets in college football. So I really like what we have there. We saw in the bowl game the emergence of Jeremiah Beaman, a guy who arrived around 260 at Alabama. He's
Mm-hmm.
up to around 312 now. Super athletic, extremely hard worker, and I think a chance to be a really special player for Alabama. I think you're going to see him make noise this fall, and then going into 2026, he's going to be a name that everybody's going to be watching for that season. So I like Tim Keenan. I like Jeremiah Beaman. I'm going to throw Stephen Boomois here at the nose tackle as well. He could find a way there as well. And then another freshman, London Simmons, is a guy who on down the line could potentially see some snaps there. But luckily, you don't play you play one nose tackle at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, that's going to be Tim Keenan or Jeremiah Beaman. So I'm not as concerned at the depth chart and at that position as I am as James Smith and Edric Hill at the defensive tackle spot. But overall, I really like what Alabama has at nose tackle, especially with those first 2 guys in Tim Keenan and Jeremiah Beaman.
Yeah, I agree, Stacey. You talk about consistency, and that is Tim Keenan. He's been consistent his entire career at Alabama, and like you said, Beeman come in the bowl game, and really outshined. I thought what he would have done. Being a freshman and playing in a high stakes game like that, he really shined, and you can see the future is bright with him. But you still had the leadership there in Tim Keenan who can help bring Bremen along the way. So I'm excited about that.
No doubt about it. And I think Keenan coming back, I think he would have been drafted. He'd probably been, day 2 or day 3,
Right.
but he would have been drafted. But getting him back to allow Beeman to continue to develop one more year before he is the guy is huge for Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
because I really think that Beeman has a chance to be a special football player, because I think he's more explosive than what Tim Keenan is. I think he's more of a natural pass rusher than what Tim Keenan is from that nose tackle spot. So I'm really excited about the future of Jeremiah Beaman, but it's good that he can sit one more year, continue to develop, not play such a huge role in this defense one more year behind a leadership guy like Tim Keenan before he's ready to take on that role himself in 2026. So really excited about this defensive front for Alabama, Jake. I think you have to feel good about that front four. We'll talk about the Wolf now, Jake. You mentioned Quay Russaw earlier in the show. Dude, I went back and watched that Western Kentucky game a couple days ago, Jake. My
Mhm.
gosh, when that dude was all over the field in that game, and I think you saw a guy like most freshmen, most guys who have not played a ton, the injuries started to pile up. He's banged up. He's not near as explosive as he was to start the season. He's kind of worked on his body more, and he's turned himself into, I think, a guy who's going to be an actual option as a three-down player, as a good run stopper on first and second down, and a guy who can get after the passer on third down.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about having Russaw back. It kind of stung when he went down, but man, he is an elite talent. And you talk about guys like Jahad Campbell. I know it's a different position, but this is the guy who potentially, if he continues to develop and continues to be what I think he can become and reaches that ceiling, he's going to be another top 20 pick, for Alabama at a Wolf linebacker position for this team. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mentioned how Russaw worked on his body. He was 250 plus last year. He's down to 241, or that's what he was listed at in the spring. I imagine he's going to play around 238 to 240 this year.
Yeah.
He's quick. He's got some twitch
Explosive.
to him. He's explosive. I just really like what Quay Russaw brings to the table. And as far as depth at the Wolf position, you have a guy like a Jamarian Latham who's
Yep.
kind of a tweener between a bandit or a wolf, a bigger bodied guy who's really physical at the point of attack, an experienced player. You have some younger guys who are really kind of those pass rushers in Yanze Pierre, Noah Carter, the true freshman Justin Hill. So you have some depth there behind Quay Russaw. So I really like what Alabama has at the Wolf position. This defensive front, Jake, has a chance to be special.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm so excited about it. Just having that experience on the line with Tim Keenan starting out, but you got a James Smith, and now you have you know Quay Russaw. I mean, you just got explosive guys there on that defensive front. So this group has a chance to be elite this year for sure.
Absolutely. And I think we've talked about the defensive front so far, and I don't think we've even gotten to the strength of this defense yet, which we'll get to later, which is what makes me so excited about how good the defense potentially could be
Right.
in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
All right, Jake. So let's move on to the off-ball linebackers position group. Who you lose Jahad Campbell at that stinger position, who also kind
Mhm.
of flexed as a third down pass rusher on the edge, a first-round pick to the Philadelphia Eagles. But other than that, you return a lot of talent, a lot of
Mhm.
experience. You bring in a guy like Nikai Hill-Green from Colorado, who's talented and experienced. So, I mean, you look at the trio, I think we could just talk about Deontae Lawson, Justin Jefferson, Nikai Hill-Green. How do you see that off-ball linebacker position kind of working out for Alabama this fall?
No, I think it's going to be fine. Getting Lawson back was huge. He was a big strength as a linebacker, and again, he went down. Just seemed like the injury bug just killed Alabama late in the season last year. Losing him was huge because he's our signal caller on the defensive side of the ball. So now you have to transition somebody else who's not really experienced in doing that to call the defense and get plays, in and out and get adjustments. Now we got that guy back in Deontae Lawson, and when he's on the field, man, if he can stay healthy, he's one of the best linebackers in the country.
Absolutely. And I think the addition of Nikai Hill-Green is huge as well, especially in terms of run support. If you go back and watch how he played at Colorado, he was terrific against the run. And I think he's going to add that element to this linebacker group. Jefferson and Lawson are really athletic guys who
Yep.
can play in space. And then you kind of have that downhill guy in Nikai Hill-Green. So excited about that trio. You talk about the younger guys behind them, though. You have Caden Jones, who was a terrific special teams player for Alabama last year. I thought when he come in and late game situations played pretty well in that inside linebacker spot. You got a guy like QB Reese, Duke Johnson, Abdul Sanders, Luke Metz, plenty of young talent there in that off-ball linebacker group. And is there a name amongst those 5 younger guys that you think could, maybe obviously the 3 guys we've already talked about are going to get the majority of the snaps, but a guy that you're kind of watching from those younger group of players in that inside linebacker spot that you're kind of watching this fall?
A guy that I think has a chance. I saw a lot of film on him, and he looks like a prototypical linebacker in this K Womack defense, and that's Duke Johnson. I'm ready to see what he can do. And of course, he's just got a cool name, Duke Johnson, and that just sounds cool. And I just can't wait to hear Duke Johnson with the tackle or Duke Johnson.
You better be a good football player with that name.
Exactly. So that just I feel like learning pains. A lot of these younger guys, they're not going to see much of the field unless injuries start piling up again. God forbid that happens. But they will get some experience. I'm sure they'll probably come in some of the blowout games. I think we'll probably have at least one blowout game this year. And they'll get some playing time then. But just keep an eye on a guy named Duke Johnson. I feel like he's going to be special.
I really like that. And a guy who also has a great name, Abdul Sanders.
Yeah.
I like him as well. I really like all these younger inside linebackers because they all bring a little something different to the table. So excited about seeing those guys continue to develop as well. And I think this inside linebacker position or the off-ball linebackers have a chance to be a really good, part of this defense. So you think whether it's Justin Jefferson and Deontae Lawson as the starters, or however that works, how they decide to use Nakai Hill-Green. I'm just really interested in seeing how the coaching staff, Coach Chuck Morrell, who's the new linebackers coach there, kind of decides to play those guys and how he's going to work those guys in and out of the lineup. So really good part of the defense, a lot of experience, a lot of talent back in that room, along with some younger talent that you can continue to groom for the future there at the off-ball linebacker position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Jake, to the strength of this defense, without question, the secondary. Yep. And I don't even know where to start, really. I mean, it's we can start at corner. We can start at safety. I guess we'll start at corner, Jake. You return Domani Jackson. You return Xavier Brown. I mean, that right there is about as good a cornerback duo as there is in the country. And then on top of that, you bring in a 5-star talent in Dejon Lee, who's 6'4" with 9-foot-long arms and can cover everybody. You bring in one of the top transfer cornerbacks in the country from Utah, Cam Calhoun. You got a guy like Chuck McDonald coming in. You got, it's just amazing the talent at that cornerback position and the secondary overall, Jake. But just strictly cornerback, Jake, what excites you the most about that group?
What excites me is not only the strength there, leadership as well, but Xavier Brown. I mean, I know he's so young, but he made a household name for himself with that interception at Georgia, and he come in and played just as a freshman, just lights out, and did really well. And we're going to see him at least 2 more years, and that's great. And he has a chance to be a special player at Alabama. Another Marlon Humphreys, perhaps, in terms. I don't know about the size, him and Humphreys, but being that great, he has the potential to be that. And then Domani Jackson. I mean, a guy that's you call a shutdown corner, he's also a shutdown corner, and you throw it his way, he's going to knock it down, he's going to intercept it. So these 2 guys, you put them out on an island by themselves, and that's fine. You allow the safeties behind them to play the ball strictly, and that's great. That's great for Alabama.
And that's what these coaches want. They want their defensive backs being able to make a play on the football. And man, when you have 2 corners like Domani Jackson and Xavier Brown as your starters, and then you got Cam Calhoun who can come off the bench, a Dejon Lee who can come off the bench, a Red Morgan who kind of moved to corner this spring. Just, man, the depth, the length, the athleticism is truly spectacular there at the cornerback spot. So one of the best strengths on the team, and it's just part of a secondary that has a chance to be really special. You look at the Husky spot, Jake, I think it's Deshaun Jones's job to lose going into fall camp. But the thing is that Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. really
Mm-hmm.
created a lot of buzz this spring. So, and we all know from watching last year that that Coach Womack, Coach DeBoer, they like to play a lot of dudes. They get into that too deep. So I think there's a chance we see a lot of Deshaun Jones. I also think there's a chance we see a lot of Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. So how are you feeling about that Husky position?
Yeah, I think we're gonna be all right there as well. Deshaun Jones is really good. He had a great year last year, and then you saw the emergence a little bit last year, and then I saw it in the spring. Kind of, I don't really call it the spring game, but it's just the 7-on-7 that they did. But you saw the emergence of Drake Kirkpatrick and what he brings to the table. So I'm fine with, and I can live with those two guys handling that Husky position because you've got two good guys there that can man that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Mhm.
I think fans have to be excited about the emergence of Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. If anything, just because of I can't believe he's playing for Alabama after his dad played there, which only seems
Right.
like a few years ago, but obviously
We're
it's been a lot longer than that, and we're getting
we're
pretty
old.
old.
Yeah.
We're old.
Uh,
But looking at free safety, Jake, I think a guy who just had a breakout year last year, Bray Hubbard.
mm,
Like Tim Keenan, one of the most underrated players in the country, regardless of position. He's obviously going to be roaming the field as that free safety, Jake, just a playmaker. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. He's a football dude, and he makes plays. He's physical. He can play the ball. He can play in space. He is just a football player, Jake, and I love what he brings to the table. I think Ivan Taylor, the true freshman, the son of Ike Taylor, is probably going to be backing him up in that role.
mhm.
And I like what he brings to the table as well, kind of that football pedigree, just an instinctual football player and a guy who also turned some heads this spring. So at free safety, I love what they have there with Bray Hubbard and Ivan Taylor.
Yeah, I agree, Stacey. And we haven't even mentioned yet. He's the next guy I'm going to talk about. Keon Sabb. When Sabb went down, Bray Hubbard come in and I mean, it was just a different feel, like and more nastiness. It seemed like with the defense when him on the field. I mean, he what I call a headhunter. I mean,
Yeah.
he finds the ball and he is going to make a play on the ball and he's going to light you up if he gets a chance to. And I love that aggressive attitude because it seems like we've been missing an aggressive attitude playing within the rules. I'm not saying go knock somebody's head off, and all that do and all that mess, but just playing within the rules, making hard hits, hard legal hits. We ain't
Let them
seen
know
that
you're there.
right. And Bray Hubbard did that when he was on the field last year, and I love that. That's old school football that I grew up with, and I love seeing those hard hits. And he definitely lays a boom on people.
Yeah, yeah. Bray Hubbard, kind of that throwback football player, and
Mhm,
that everybody can appreciate watching. Just a really good guy, really good football player, and I
mhm.
just he's so much fun to watch because you can tell he's giving it everything he's got on every play, and that's something you can appreciate. You mentioned
Mhm.
Keon Sapp. He's going to be obviously the starter there at that rover spot, kind of the
Yep.
strong safety rover, whatever you want to call it. I really like Keon Sapp. He's really
Mhm.
athletic, just a fluid athlete who gets after it. Obviously, when he went down, you mentioned this already last year. It did change some things up on the defensive side of the football, but he's back now. He's healthy. And I think he's in for a really good season. And then I think, backing him up, you have a guy like Zay Mincy who played corner a lot last year. We saw him move to that kind of rover position late in the year, maybe against Michigan. I guess it was against Michigan in the bowl game. We saw
Yeah.
him make that move. And I think that's more of his natural position at 6'3" with that length and his athleticism. So I like what they have with Keon Sabb and the growth that we're probably going to see from Zay Mincy because, like I mentioned earlier, this coaching staff loves to play those guys on the second team. So I do think that Zay Mincy is going to see his fair share of reps with the first team defense as well. So Keon Sabb and Zay Mincy are really good, are positioned well to have good seasons for Alabama at that rover slash strong safety position in the back end of that defense.
Absolutely, Stacy. And Keon Sabb, I think he had 3 interceptions his first 2 games at Alabama. And we was like, man, this is awesome. And then the injury started, piling up again. And then he went down, I think it was the Tennessee game when he went fully down and was out for the rest of the year. But he's back. You got a ball hawk like him patrolling the center field and patrolling the field. Um, you know, it, as a quarterback, as an opposing quarterback, what side of the field are you going to throw to against Alabama? That's what I want to know. You throw it over here to uh, I mean, Domani Jackson, Bray Hubbard's over there, or Keon Sapp. Opposite side, what do you do in that situation? Who do you
Yeah.
throw it to? It's
And
a good
and
problem to
all the
have.
while, LT Overton, James Smith, and
Yeah,
Tim Keenan are bearing down on you. So,
I know. So you talk about deep. This defense is deep.
yep. And there's no doubt that the strength of this defense at the secondary,
Yep.
and there's plenty of reason to be excited about that. Jake, before we wrap up the show, I'm going to ask you something that I didn't tell you I was going to ask you. Give me your breakout player on the defensive side of the ball, a guy who is, obviously you can't tell me LT Overton. You can't tell
Right.
me Deontae Lawson, Bray Hubbard, anybody like that. A guy along the depth chart who you think is going to step up and become a dude for this defense in 2025.
Uh, I think there's a guy. I think we talked about him a little bit just in passing, but Pierre, Janze Pierre, dude,
Ooh.
he is chiseled out of like a Greek god statue. I mean, and I just don't see a way where he doesn't at least find the field in some capacity this year. And I'll give you a secondary guy, Keon Keeley. I've been watching him, and he's kind of struggled a little bit trying, I guess, whether it's trying to learn the playbook or trying to find his niche where he needs to fit in this defense. But those two guys right there, I feel like they're going to find some playing time this year, and they're going to be set up well for next year to be playing pretty much every down.
Well, real quick before I tell you mine, I'm going
Mhm.
to give you the story on Keon Keeley, and this is why
Mhm.
people should not give up on dudes. There's
Right.
always a reason for things.
Yep.
People say it's excuses. But sometimes it's just reasons.
Right.
Well, he comes in as a true freshman, Jake. He's kind of in that tweener size of, hey, do we need to knock him inside, or do we need to try to not let him gain any weight and muscle and power and keep him on the outside? All
Hmm.
the while, in front of him, you had Dallas Turner and you had Chris Braswell. He wasn't
Yeah.
going to play ahead of those guys as true freshmen.
Right.
Two guys who were drafted in the first couple of rounds of the NFL draft.
Right.
So he wasn't going to play ahead of those guys.
Hmm.
Well, the next year, a whole new coaching staff comes in. The dude just continues to grow. He's still a teenager. He's growing and maturing. He
Right.
continues to grow. They decide to kick him inside, moving from a pass rusher at what would have been a wolf position in this defense to the other side to play bandit, where
Hmm.
you got to be more physical. You got to be more powerful. You play a different style of football than you do as a pure pass rusher.
Hmm.
So he's gaining weight and he's learning a new position in year 2. So
Hmm.
here he is in year 3. He's
Hmm.
probably finished growing for the most part, sitting
Right.
around 6'5", 280, 285.
Good night.
Incredible strength,
Hmm.
incredible power, incredible speed, incredible quickness. And it should be no surprise that, hey, the light bulb has finally come on in year 2 of this position, and he's learning and he's growing and he's getting better. So absolutely, Jake, year 3 here with Keon Keeley, the former 5-star stud who everybody was excited about, including myself,
Right.
could be the year where he starts to emerge and show why he was such a highly coveted prospect. So that's the reason. I mean, it
Hmm.
doesn't mean he's not a good football player. It doesn't mean
Right.
he's not ever going to be a good football player. It's a developmental sport. And when you're 6'5", 280 pounds, you have to develop. You have to
Right.
grow. Then you change positions too. So I just want fans to not give up on dude so quickly.
Yeah.
It's just year 3. He has a chance to be a special player, and it could start as early as 2025.
I agree. I agree. I'm excited about him and Pierre though.
Absolutely. Those are 2 really solid picks. I like that. I'm going to go with Jeremiah Beeman, a guy that
Yeah.
we saw kind of sneak into some airwaves against Michigan there in the bowl game, and I just really feel like he could, cause some havoc on
Yeah.
the interior of that defensive line for Alabama. So I'm going to go with Jeremiah Beeman. And another guy I'll go with is, since you went with 2, I got to go 2 as well. I'm going to go Zay Mincy.
Yeah.
I think he could.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say he starts over Keon Sabb, but I say he pushes Sabb to the limit of their kind of play in that spot at almost at a 50-50 role there. So I'm going to go Jeremiah Beeman and Zay Mincy as my breakout players on this Alabama defense. But that is our complete depth chart breakdown. Also, a couple guys that we have to look out for in this season. Jake, anything else you want to add in terms of this defense entering the 2025 season?
I just want to say real quick that, we talked about several shows, if you go back and look through YouTube, talking about how this transfer portal and people leaving doesn't really develop, players because there's no competition. That's not happening this year in Alabama. There's competition at every level. So competition breeds competition, and it makes everybody stronger. So we've got that. I mean, you have this defense and this defensive line going against our best offensive linemen. They're getting better each and every time. We've got this defense going against our offense. The offense is getting better every time playing against this defense. So competition breeds competition. Now we've got some depth, and that's pushing the players to play harder than what they've had to do in the past, because we finally have stability. We have people who want
stability.
Want to be there, and we have depth, and that's another big thing this year too that's really going to help Alabama.
No doubt about it. That's a great point. No doubt about it. And I think now that we've seen this whole new rev share thing, not that the NIL era is going away, but I do think you're going to start seeing. I'm not going to say it's going to go away completely, but the portal, I believe, is going to start to slow down a little bit, and it's not going to be, every team's losing 20 guys every offseason. So to the portal. So I do think you're going to start seeing things get a little better in terms of that. And I think you're right. Obviously, when you can keep depth, year in and year out, it builds competition, and that competition just breeds excellence. So absolutely great point there as well. But that's going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. Give us a subscription, a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Leave us those 5-star written reviews there as well, because that helps us out with their algorithm too. It just helps us reach more listeners and more Alabama football fans, and we just certainly appreciate that. Jump in the comments here on YouTube. Give us your thoughts on this Alabama defense. What's the strength? What's the weakness? What position group are you most excited about? Just whatever your thoughts are on this Alabama defense entering the 2025 season. We want to hear from you guys there. But we really appreciate everybody tuning in. Our channel is growing. Our subscribe now that we're kind of getting back in the swing of things after taking last year off. Our channel is picking up. We're gaining subscribers on the daily. So just keep that up. But please do share us with all your friends, even your enemies as well. We'll take some Auburn fans. They need some good news. Auburn does. I hate to kick a horse while he's down, but they could use some good recruiting news, especially after all the trash they talked about Alabama last year. But that's for another show. But Jake, I enjoyed it, man. Good to talk to you. Good to talk some Alabama football. The season's right around the corner. We cannot wait for it to get here, and we have more for you guys lined up down the road as well. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys real soon. Until then, roll tide.
Roll tide.